Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out S through T, which is arguably the longest section in the store, so this is going to be a long one. Sit back and relax. So, we've got, to begin with, Samurai Warriors 4, the quadrilogy. So, we'll start with Chronicles 3, because that came out first in Japan. The idea is that you create your own character and it takes you through your own version of the Samurai Warriors story, which is the Sengoku period. And you beat up a lot of guys in the process, and you can swap between multiple characters at once, and it's fairly interesting, and it's alright. And it runs pretty well, because this game was originally designed for the Vita in mind. It was also made for the 3DS, but that was a down port. Also, that looks like fucking Hatsune Miku. And it's also got a weird, like, survival mode thing. It's just, yeah. Moving on to Samurai Warriors 4, which came out next. This had a weird little, what's the word I'm looking for? It had the main story mode, which was perfectly fine, and it had this weird mode where you run around the country collecting memoirs and officer biographies and stuff like that, and that mode wasn't very interesting at all. But it did also have the new Samurai Warriors 4 combat system, and the combat system in the Samurai Warriors 4 games are actually pretty good, because you have a huge-ass hyper attack that'll take out a ton of enemies in a row and stuff like that, but it's, yeah, it's still a perfectly good game, and it's fun. Worth playing, at the very least. If you had to pick any game in particular, it'd probably be 4, or possibly 4 Empires. Samurai Warriors 4-2 basically ripped out the story, but it replaced it with a bunch of new extra scenarios, and they ripped out the wander around Japan, finding your ancestors' legacies mode, and you have a new survival mode, which has a bunch of different things to go and do as well, and it's still alright, but it's still the same bloody game. And then you've got Samurai Warriors 4 Empires, which is actually the most interesting of the bunch, but still, it's got that whole Empires thing where you have to pick a bunch of people and use them to rule over your land and use their tactics to try and win all the other empires, but it just doesn't feel like you're having that much of effect on the other empires, because it doesn't feel like they're moving without you. But yeah, it's a little strange, but it's still probably the best one of the bunch. The problem with all 4 of these is we got all of these in the space of 2 years, and franchise fatigue really set in. So I'm hoping that Dynasty Warriors 9 comes out next and that there's something interesting. I mean, they are bringing out that Dynasty Warriors strategy game, so that might be interesting. But anyway, yeah, I'm a little bit burnt out on this whole series. But yeah, it's all just hack and slash. And basically, pick either Chronicles 3, 4 Empires, or 4-2. Just pick one and just stick with it. You'll be fine. Saturday Morning RPG. It's a RPG that's based off old 80s cartoons, more or less. It is original plot. It just feels like trying to make a, like, recollection up to that. But the problem with the battle system is that it's really boring. You end up doing the same attacks over and over because the rest end up being bloody useless, and you end up just having to do the same thing with every single battle over and over and over and over and over and over again. It just gets really repetitive really fast. It's just disappointing, honestly. Really disappointing. I actually was kind of looking forward to this. Sayonara Umihara Kawase Plus. It's a very difficult retro platformer based on an old SNES game. You have a fishing line. You attach this fishing line to things like walls to reel yourself up and over walls, and you attach them to enemies to hurt enemies and reel them in for points. And you've also got things like boss fights to deal with and stuff. I never figured out how the fishing line works. It works in such a weird way that I never could figure out, and the game doesn't have a very good tutorial to teach you how it works, so I'm not that big of a fan of it. I wasted a bunch of time trying to get used to how it works, and apparently some people have gotten so good at this game, they ended up removing their analog sticks from their Vita just to have a Sayonara Umihara Kawase playing machine. Because it also includes the original SNES game. So, yeah, that was a bit strange to hear about. Senran Kagura Bon Appetit is a rhythm game-based spin-off of the Senran Kagura series, which we will be talking about next. And it's only got like 12 songs, and you play through like half of them during someone's storyline, and it's ridiculously repetitive after a while. The rhythm games themselves are usually fine, and it ends with a ridiculous looking, like, for example, one of the main characters ends up cuddling naked up to a chocolate-covered banana. Yeah, that's in my video if you want to go see it. I'm surprised I didn't get banned from YouTube for that one. It's okay, mostly. If you want more Senran Kagura, you can come here, but yeah, not particularly grand. Senran Kagura Shinobi Versus was the first of the 2 hack and slashes that came out on Vita. The idea is you've got lots of big boob girls, and they are all ninjas, shinobi. And there's a storyline that involves them having to... Well, I actually don't remember what the storyline about Senran Kagura was, but I do remember the gameplay, which is 3D hack and slash. There's a bunch of different characters, and they've all got lots of different moves. And it is actually a really fun game. There's a ton of chain building to be had. There's a ton of fodder to destroy. There's a lot of stages to do, leveling up, abilities to unlock, and the characters' clothes get torn apart when they take more damage and stuff like that. And you can go into a frantic mode, which strips them down to their underwear for some bloody reason. It's a really fast, furious, and fun 3D beat-em-up. It's well worth the try. Well worth the try. But, yeah. Then they released Estival Versus, which is the same thing, but in Senran Kagura Shinobi Versus, they had, like, multiple storylines. This replaced it with one. They broke the leveling so that it makes no sense and takes really long, unless you do, like, the characters' main stories, which gives an absolute fuck ton of XP for no good reason. And the game runs terribly. The frame rate drops constantly, and sometimes it just flat out refuses to accept button inputs sometimes. It's just weird. It's really weird, and there are multiplayer modes for both, and they both run terribly, but Estival Versus runs even worse, and Shinobi Versus just did everything Estival Versus did better. Which I really don't understand, but oh well. And they're both full of fan service, obviously, and they both do fan service a lot, so yeah, be ready for that. Severed! Recently released dungeon crawler from the people behind Guacamelee. The idea is you are a girl who's lost your family, and you have to go and slash the shit out of some monsters. You go through this very simple dungeon, and you use the touchscreen to fight off lots of different monsters. They all have their own attack patterns, their own strengths and weaknesses, and you have to try and parry or stop their attacks entirely in order to not get damaged. It's a fun combat system. It does get a bit repetitive after a while, because if you face the same enemies, it's the same pattern every time. There's no variation. But the art is gorgeous, and it's fun trawling through all the dungeons and finding all the stuff you can get, because there is like an upgrade tree. It's a somewhat simple game, but it's still pretty damn nice. And I mean, while I wouldn't call it the fucking game of the year, like all the other game reviewer places seem to do, at the same time, it's well worth picking up, and to be fair, you probably should. Shinobi 2 has actually been taken off the store, which is disappointing. I've done a video on it after it got taken off the store, so if you want to learn more about that, go look at my video on that. But it's a really good game nonetheless. Shovel Knight is a fantastic callback to retro platformers of old. Mega Man, Castlevania, even Super Mario. And there's a bit of Dark Souls in there as well. You play the Shovel Knight. You've got the shovel. The shovel is unique. You can use it to do all sorts of like head bouncy and attack moves. And you've got all sorts of special items you can use. There's a ton of levels. The graphics are fantastic. The music's fantastic. The bosses are fantastic. The story's fantastic. One of the best games I've played in the past 5 years. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Buy it immediately if you haven't. Shimi is a 2D shooter that's based on being random more than anything else. Kit cutouts. I'll have to go back to the screenshots down here. It's got a bunch of random crap, and every time you come to a level, there's always something different about it, and there's a bunch of different enemies, and there's a bunch of items you can pick up that all do different things. Admittedly, it does a kind of neat thing where you have to pick an item within like 2 seconds, and you don't have time to read the item descriptions, and it actively berates you for trying to read the descriptions. It's kind of neat. But yeah, the problem with the game is that you see everything it has to show you in the first hour. There's not that much content involved there at all, and it's gone an hour. Like, for PlayStation Plus download, great. Go get it. Go have a little bit of fun. But, yeah. It just doesn't have that much content to it, and it's disappointing. Civilization Revolution 2 Plus feels like a cut-down version of Civ 5. It runs fine, and it works like a Civ game does. You build multiple cities, you build them up, you build up your army, you attack other people, you try and get to the end of the tech tree before they do. You try to do other stuff like that, but it feels like a bunch of stuff is missing. Like, interpersonal politics is cut down to a couple of menu screens. There's not that much variety in the enemy units. You can't name your own cities. You can't build your own cities. There's a few civilizations, and they all have their own bonuses, but there's no like downsides or weaknesses to any of them, and the whole game just feels a bit... I'm not going to say rushed, but this is a port from a mobile game, so it just feels a bit lightweight in comparison to your typical Civ game. So, you know, if you want Revolution 2 on the go, it's right there. Take it. Silent Hill Book of Memories is a weird-ass dungeon crawler. It's a 3D dungeon crawler where you wander through these dungeons, collect weapons, use special abilities, and find items and stuff like that. It's really strange why they decided to make this a Silent Hill game. And you have to get through all these different levels and collect all these puzzle pieces to get out, and there's boss fights and all that. And it's just weird, honestly. It doesn't feel very good. There's not that much satisfying about it. It's just a bit weak in pretty much every situation. I don't know why they decided to do this. If they named it something else, it'd be a lot better, but they just decided not to. They just decided to use the Silent Hill IP for some goddamn reason. Senura is a 2D shooter with the 3D graphics from the people at Grasshopper Interactive, and they made an absolute whopper here. The idea behind this game is that you can slow down time, or you can stop time, or you can use all sorts of time-changing abilities to get through these massive bullet swarms and enemies and levels and stuff like that. There's a ton of stuff to unlock, a ton of stuff to do, and the gameplay is like razor-sharp difficult, so you really do need to be really good at shooters to stand a chance. But it's got absolutely fantastic graphics, it sounds lovely, it's got an interesting story, it's a wonderful shooter, it's well worth picking up. Sirim is a monster breeding RPG, a lot like, well, I was going to say Pokemon, but it's not really that much like Pokemon. So the idea is, it's 6-on-6 monster battling. When you battle monsters or search around areas, you get resources. You use these resources to upgrade your castle for more abilities, and you go back and you find more stuff to get better monsters. And the game's practically infinite. It goes for a really, really long time. There's no real story to it past the first hour where you get everything ready to go. And everything's got massive stats, and you can equip it all with items, and they've all got special abilities. So, making a party of 6 that all fights at the same time to take on another worthy party of 6 can be really compelling for the right sort of person. So, if the whole idea of an endless game where you can just be constantly building new monsters and stuff appeals to you, don't buy this, wait for the sequel. There is a sequel coming. It's coming in a few months, I believe. But, still... Serial M1's still pretty good. I don't think there's going to be any save transferring or anything like that, which is a little bit of a shame, but we'll live with it. Sketchcross is a Picross game based around paper, so it all has this old paper theme going to it. And while I normally like puzzle games a lot, especially Picross games, there's only 50 puzzles, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. There are more puzzles that come in sooner, and there's even frenzy puzzles, which are like 30 puzzle, easily randomly generated puzzles with like a 30-second time limit. The problem is, some of the pre-included puzzles in there aren't solvable by regular Picross means. They've made really bad puzzles that you can't logically figure out without doing a bit of cheating. It's ridiculous. They actually patched a couple of the puzzles I had a problem with, so they might have fixed the ones that are broken, but I wouldn't know for sure. Skullgirls Second Encore is a 2D fighter, and it's a pretty damn good one at that. You've got 13 characters, and they're all extremely unique. Fuck big band. You've got lots of different arenas and stuff you can go to. There's a story mode, a survival mode. There's just all the basic modes you get, and there's online play, which is GGPO. So it's very hard to break GGPO. And you can fight either with a team of 3 or one really strong character. I'd recommend going with the full 3. There's a lot of stuff to learn, the tutorial is fantastic, and it's a really good fighting game. And it performs really well, so I would recommend Skullgirls to anyone who likes those sorts of games. Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, is the 4th in the series. They actually ported the first 3. And it's actually a decent game. Like, I don't have a problem with it. It's just, like, not that impressive. Like, I have played the first 3 Sly games, and this doesn't feel like it matches up to those games, but it's still a pretty good 3D platformer nonetheless, and it's pretty cheap. But then again, we do have the Sly collection on here, so if you haven't played that, you should go play that first. Smart As is going down in the next few weeks. It's actually kind of disappointing, because it needs it does need online features for a lot of the stuff that it does, so you won't be able to play most of the game. But the idea is, It's a lot like those brain training games on DS, where they give you a lot of mini games that you can use either the touch screens or the buttons or something like that to play. And it gives you a score, and you can keep going upwards and upwards and upwards, and it's actually a really nice little thing. I actually really liked it, and if you need something to keep your brain going from day after day, well, that's probably well worth going and having a look at. Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed is a fantastic port of a fantastic kart racer. Sure, you might argue that it's trying to rip off Mario Kart, and the weapons are a little bit iffy in the sense that they're kind of generic and don't really mean much. But every character in this game can transform at will between kart, hovercraft, and plane, and the courses change every lap, so that you might end up flying, you might be on the ground for an entire lap, and you might be in the air for the final lap of the same course. It's a wonderful little system, and it gives the game an amazing amount of variety. I fucking love this game, and the port is great. It runs really well. It does fantastically. IGN fucking lied and said that this game has performance issues. No, it fucking doesn't. And then again, they never reviewed the 3DS version, which has a list of bugs so long, it gets into the double digits in terms of how many pages it needs. Fuck off, IGN. Unrelated rant out of the way. Sorcery Saga, Curse of the Great Curry God. It's a roguelike in the most traditional sense, like Shiren the Wanderer traditional sense, where you have this lovely little coup thing that you have to carry around in the dungeon with you, and it can help you with, like, if you feed it, it'll help you, but you need to keep him alive by keeping him fed, and you can't leave without him. And you can craft curry in order to take down with you for items and stuff like that into the dungeons, and there's lots of enemies to fight and lots of bosses and items to pick up and stuff like that. It's a fun little roguelike. It's not fantastic, but it's still fun nevertheless. Although it's going to get overshone by the fact that we're getting Shiren 5 in the next couple of months. Like 3 days before my birthday is the release date of Shiren 5 in North America, which I'm looking forward to so fucking much. You have no idea. But anyway, moving along. Soul Sacrifice is an absolutely fantastic hunting game which you should ignore and get its successor, Delta. But yeah, both of these games are fantastic. They were done by Kaiji Inafune's studio. And the idea is that you are a hunter in a destroyed world trying to defeat lots of huge beasties and, trying to defeat lots of huge beasties. And these huge beasties are all from fairy tales and mythical legends. And it's absolutely wonderful as a theme. And the gameplay itself involves you getting more powerful spells and offerings via combining them together and earning them from battles. And you have to try and conserve all your resources and keep the fight going. And it never gets dull. Like, it can get repetitive, obviously. Like the shut down your brain, let's go kill a bunch of things. Sort of repetitive. But it's still really good. It's the best hunting game there is on Vita by far. And Soul Sacrifice Delta is a really well-rounded experience. Soul Sacrifice was okay, more or less, but Soul Sacrifice Delta fixed most of the problems the original Soul Sacrifice had. So get Delta immediately. It's well worth your time. Sound Shapes is a two-dimensional platformer that works on music. So the idea is you pick up these little collectibles along the way, and when you pick them up, it keeps the music going. It adds more instruments to the music. And it keeps going. It goes like, the music keeps getting better and better and better. There's lots of artists in there like Beck, Deadmau5, and Jim Guthrie. And a bunch of really nice illustrations from a lot of familiar people. So yeah, as you can see down there, just by the names of it. It's a really nice game. The one thing that brings it down, it's even got level editing, so you can make your own music. The one thing that brings it down is that there's these death courses that are procedurally generated, so you'll never be able to be guaranteed to get through them, and they're really fucking hard, and they're a massive pain in the ass. But yeah, they're still pretty good games. Space Hulk is a conversion of the board game to the Vita, and it's just a bit of a pain in the ass, because not only is it a board game, so you can get fucked over by just pure random chance, but it runs terribly, and it actually made me feel a little bit ill after playing it for too long. It's a little bit of a disappointing port. The three Sparkle games are, if you've ever played Zuma or Magnetica, you'll know exactly what these are. You fire balls at other colored balls that are coming in towards the goal, and you need to try and keep them away from the goal. If they get in the goal, you lose. And there's 3 games, and they all have individual levels, so, you know, Just pick the first game, or the second, or the third. It doesn't matter. They're all about the same. And just, you know, just play them. Because why not, right? Spelunky is the... would I call it infamous? I'd probably call it famous. The famous 2D platforming roguelike where you delve down into caves, try and get as much money as possible, buy stuff from merchants, interact with the environment, and try and get to the end. It's a really interesting platformer, and it is a lot of fun to play through and die over and over again to try and learn all the secrets and kidnap ladies, get them to kiss you, and then they give you health back. Fucking video games, man. But yeah, it's a good little platformer. It's just surprisingly hard, and it's a bit of a pain sometimes, but you know, that's just how these things work. SpongeBob Hero Pants, I didn't play that, but judging purely by the screenshots and the fact that it's not even fucking listed there anymore, what the hell? It's a... what's the word I'm looking for? It's a 3D platformer from a bird's eye view. It's rather generic, and considering it's from the age where SpongeBob isn't any good anymore, it's a little bit disappointing. Spy Hunter is the most boring racing game I've ever played in my life. It looks terrible. It runs okay, actually, but it's just really generic, boring racing with a little bit of explosions and stuff thrown in. Like, I know that's a really... that sentence has no right to be boring, but it is when you have it in context to Spy Hunter. Squares is a puzzle game where you have to use the touchscreen to get the puzzles... well, not so much the puzzles as much as the reaction tests done as fast as possible. That red line across the top is your time. You've got to get everything done without actually tapping the red squares. It's interesting. The problem is that sometimes it doesn't detect your taps, and so therefore it's a bit of a pain in the ass to play. We'll save Star Wars Pinball for later. Star Drone Extreme. It's a puzzle game where you have to launch a spaceship through a large space area and just try and get through a bunch of obstacles and stuff like that. It's just not that fun. Like, I barely remember a thing about it. That's how little I remember of it. Starlight Inception. One of the most terrible games there is on the Vita at the moment. It's bad. It's really bad. It looks terrible. Like, you should have seen... I can't explain how bad this game is without showing you. Go watch my video on Starlight Inception if you want to laugh at a fucking terrible game. Stealth Inc. A Clone in the Dark. It's a port of the PC game Stealth Bastard. Why they felt the need to change the name, I have no idea. But the idea is... you're a clone, you have to wander through levels and try and stay out of the light and solve all the puzzles while staying out of the light and not getting killed. It's okay. It works. It's alright. I don't have a problem with it that much. Stealth Inc. 2 is a little bit worse, but funnily enough, it's not actually listed here. It's probably down the bottom still. Steamworld Dig is another 2D roguelike-ish thing. The idea is that you are a droid who needs to dig under the world for resources, and you have to dig under and collect resources to get better stuff, and you use that better stuff to get deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to the end of the game, and then you can replay it to try and get it done faster, and it's a really compelling little thing. It's like playing Minecraft, but in 2D. So, well, it's not exactly like playing Minecraft in 2D, but it's like the mining part of Minecraft, but in 2D. You try to figure out the most optimal ways to get through a place, and just all sorts of silly stuff like that. It's really good. Steins Gate. Crazy sci-fi visual novel about a guy who somehow manages to figure out how to send text messages back in time, and they can modify the world, and it's just fucking ridiculous and crazy, and I really do need to play it a bit more. It's got a huge amount of good ratings. One of the best visual novels that have ever been made, and the anime was pretty good as well, I heard. So, you know, one of these days I will get around to playing that. Stick It to the Man is described as a comedy puzzle platformer, but I didn't laugh at the comedy. The puzzling is just annoying because I end up just like... eventually I just ended up brute forcing every puzzle because I found myself getting through it faster than actually finding out the solutions. And the platforming is really light and kind of hard to play. So, yeah. A lot of people liked this game. I sure didn't. Stranger of Sword City is the latest ever from Experience that just came out at the time of this recording. And the idea is that you play as a invulnerable person taking a bunch of vulnerable people through a series of dungeons, and you have to try and get items and, you know, level up your characters and all that. And it's an okay game. It's just really, really freaking difficult. all your characters, if they die, they lose a life point. If they lose that life point, if they lose their life points, they disappear forever. So, it's permadeath in a sense. And you have to spend a ton of time leveling up party members so that you always have something to work with if someone gets hurt or if you don't want to risk sending someone into a high-level dungeon or something. It's really hard. Not a bad game, but really hard. Keep that in mind if you decide to play it. Street Fighter Cross Tekken is the worst fucking Street Fighter game to get a port to the Vita, which is kind of disappointing. But yeah, it's Street Fighter characters versus Tekken characters in the Street Fighter engine. So it does feel like Street Fighter, it does play like Street Fighter, but it's got that whole gems system, which gives you really weird bonuses. That's a pain in the ass. And you can't turn them off. And there's also 2v2, not 1v1 like regular Street Fighter. So I really wish they ported Street Fighter 4 to the Vita. But yeah, that's just the way things are. Strike Solitaire is 8th floor, we'll ignore that. Sumioni Demon Arts is a 2D combat platformer where you can use ink to do things like draw platforms under you and hurt enemies and stuff like that. And then it's a neat concept, and you can finish the game in like an hour or two, but you have to play through the game like 15 something times to get all the endings, so it's kind of disappointing how much you have to repeat. Sunflowers is a silly little game where you have to... Well, here, I'll just show you. But basically, you have to protect the flowers from the lightning bolts while giving them water and sun. It's kind of neat. It's really cute. It's from the people who made that hamster game, and it's pretty neat. It's probably something you just pull out as like a toy or something. But yeah. Super Blackout. You know those games where you have to tap and it changes the lights around and you have to turn them all to one color? That game. Pretty good version of that game. Got a ton of puzzles and procedurally generated puzzles, but yeah, it's that game. Super Blast Deluxe is Donkey Kong Country's barrel sections turned into their own game. You've got a bunch of different abilities you can unlock, and you can do tricks in between barrels in order to gain more points and all that, and it's actually quite hard, so, all credit to them. Runs pretty terribly in the main menu, but when you get into the actual game, it works fine. It's an alright game if you like that sort of thing. I never got to play Super Exploding Zoo that much because my memory card was dying at the time, and I never got around to covering it before I got a replacement memory card, but yeah. Basically, you take a bunch of animals, you explode them against big-ass enemies, and you defend your eggs. It's kind of a neat concept. It was free on PlayStation Plus at one time. I'm sorry I never got the chance to play it that much. Although, judging by the rating, not that many people liked it. Super Meat Boy! One of the best 2D platformers there's been in 5 years. It's a precision-focused platformer where you have to memorize everything and get everything absolutely right. And while I'm not usually a fan of these sorts of games, Super Meat Boy does it perfectly. It's absolutely magnificent in its polish and the sense of just making this sort of game enjoyable. It's really, really, really good. Really, really good. And it's got boss fights and all that. Unfortunately, it doesn't have like the online sharing level section and all that. So you do have a limited amount of levels, but it's still a pretty damn good game nonetheless. Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits. It's a monkey ball game, and you control it using the analog stick, and it's a bit twitchy, but it's perfectly fine. You roll down these courses with as much precision as possible, collect as many bananas, and get all the way down, and you can like do AR courses based on objects you take photos of, and there's a bunch of mini games and stuff like that. For $15, it's well worth taking a look, and there's even a demo that you can go try. So yeah, that Banana Splits is actually pretty damn good. Super Star Wars. This is a port of the old SNES game, which is actually kind of amazing to see. But yeah, it's super hard, but it's really interesting because there's a bunch of stages based off parts of the movies and then parts of the games that aren't. And you've got to go through all these different platforming areas, and you've got to shoot everything and kill everything inside, and you've got heaps of different bosses to fight, and nice little representations of the characters and the stuff there. It's a really nice little nostalgia trip, and I liked it a lot, and I'm really looking forward to seeing The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi on Vita as well. Super Stardust Delta is a twin-stick space shooter that you're stuck on a planet, you've got two different weapons to work with, they level up individually, and the whole game just looks and plays fantastically, and you've got a bunch of different like modes and levels and games to play. It's great. It came out the day the Vita did, and it's probably one of the games that a lot of people have kept around. Super Time Force Ultra. It's a 2D platformer shooter where if you can rewind time, and you can stop time, and you can have multiple characters at once going at the same time. So once someone dies, you can rewind time and then go through again with the second player, save that first character, and then recover them and use them again later on in the level and try and get through the level as quickly as possible. It's a hard concept to explain, so if you want more information on how this game works, go watch my video on it. But it's actually pretty damn cool. It is well worth a look. It's a shame there's no demo. Superbeat Xonic. It's a rhythm game from the people who made DJ Max, and it's currently $20, so that's actually a really good price for it. It's a rhythm game in the purest sense. You've got 3-track courses to go through. There's 60 tracks, and there's 3 courses. You can play 3 at a time through the course. And you have multiple lanes to play through on the buttons, and then there's buttons for the shoulders, and then there's analog stick movement things. And the music is really diverse and really nice to listen to. There's a bunch of different challenges and there's a lot of stuff to unlock, and it's a really, really nice game. So yeah, it's fully recommended if you're even remotely a fan of music games, and there's a ton of different difficulty levels as well. So you can take your time getting better, like I usually need to. Superfrog HD. It's a platformer from the Amiga days that Team 17 Software remastered. It's very average. Like, it's not bad, it's just entirely average. You got lots of collectibles to go get, lots of secrets to find, but the platforming itself is just average and not that entertaining, but it's alright. So, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Never played this game. Really do need to. I wish they dropped the price from $40 fucking at some point. Surge Deluxe. A puzzle game from the people who brought us Velocity. The idea is that you have to connect these blocks and eventually get down to the walls, which contain vents, and then open the vents to get the pressure down from the sides. And the pressure from the sides, if that fills up, the game ends. So you need to be really, really quick and really, really precise. It can be hard to be precise, but it is still a really satisfying game to play when you can be precise. Matching up all the characters' colors is a lot of fun, and it's a good time. So yeah, $5 for that is pretty good. Swap Quest is a combination of Pipe Dream and RPG. So the idea is your character's going to be constantly walking along these paths, and you have to swap it out to let him get to different treasure chests to get coins and weapons and stuff like that, and then you can upgrade your weaponry and your resistances and all that. It's the only problem with it though is it's really slow and it doesn't come with a fast forward button, so you end up waiting just a bit too long for the stages to go by, but it's still a pretty neat puzzle game nonetheless. This is a PSP game. Switch Galaxy Ultra. This originally came out back on, what's the word? PlayStation Mobile. And the idea was, it was a several lane course. Why am I thinking 3 lanes? And you swapped between the lanes using the L and R buttons. And you had to keep swapping between them in order to make sure you didn't run into something. And it had a lot of speed behind it. It was a ton of fun. And you had to beat the time limit in order to make sure that you didn't fail. But Switch Galaxy Ultra changed it up so that the speed doesn't matter anywhere near as much anymore. It's just kind of disappointing, honestly. If you want to be more specific about that, I did a video on this game explaining all my problems on it. But yeah, it's a much more disappointing game than the original Switch Galaxy, and I wouldn't recommend buying this one. I would have recommended that you go buy the original Switch Galaxy, but the original Switch Galaxy is a PlayStation Mobile game, and PlayStation Mobile doesn't exist anymore. Sword Art Online Hollow Fragment. It's a RPG that's styled a bit like an MMO. It's not an MMO, but it's styled a bit like it. The idea is that you go around these big worlds and you use all your different attacks, build up your chain, get your burst going, and you can do burst attacks between your party members and all that. And it's really easy to fall into a sort of loop with this game where you can grind the hell out of it. It's also really fan servicey because Kirito doesn't get together with just Asuna. He can get together with pretty much any of the girls, which is a bit of a weird thing. But yeah, there's also the downside of this game having a horrendous, like, notably infamous translation they actually bothered to fix on the PS4 re-release, but never bothered to patch out of this one, which was a massive pain in the dick. But it's still a pretty good game though, and if you can get over the terrible translation, well, you can still come and play it here. Lost Song, however, didn't have the translation problem, but had the problem of becoming an entirely boring hack and slash with next to no move variety, a painful grinding system where all you literally did was watch numbers count up the more you use skills, and monsters that were level 1000 when you were level 150 were still killable, which makes no fucking sense. But yeah, Sword Art Online Lost Song is not worth playing. It's just a dull piece of crap. Thankfully, we are getting Hollow Realization, which seems to be going back to the Hollow Fragment style thing soon. So maybe they'll be actually good. Soldner X2 Final Prototype is a really good, not as good as Darius Burst, but still a really good 2D shooter. It's got a lot of levels, a lot of bosses, a lot of unlockables, and there's a ton of different weapons you can use. You can swap between them at any time, and there's just a ton of stuff to do in this game. And it's really fun. And it's got an expansion that adds 2 more stages as well, and it's just, yeah. Fully recommended if you're a fan of 2D shooters and you've already bought Darius Burst. Well worth your time. Table Ice Hockey is a AR game, so it's a bit of a pain in the ass. I never got this one to work properly, actually. Table Mini Golf is the same sort of thing, but yeah, again, I never got this one to work properly either, but thankfully this one actually has screenshots. So yeah, as you can see, this is just literally a card down on the table. Like, I don't understand why this had to be an AR game. Tabletop Racing. It's a interesting little game. It's ported from mobile, and you race these little toy cars across massive surfaces, which are tables, basically. It's a lot like Micro Machines, and they've got weapons, and you've got things like drift courses to teach you how to go faster and unlockable cars and stuff like that. And they rebalanced how the, well, did they rebalance how the coins work? I think they did. They rebalanced how the coins work so that they, the unlockables come across a lot faster from the mobile version, so it's actually pretty damn decent. Tabletop Tanks. It's another one of those AR games where you put a card down and it creates a war field for tanks to play. Again, why did they have to be a AR game? It's not great. Tachyon Project. It's a twin stick shooter, and it's got a bunch of different customizability about it. You can apply lots of different abilities to your ship, and you unlock a fair bit as you go along in the story mode, and there's a lot of different enemies. It's alright. It's not fantastic, but for what it is, it's pretty good, and it's fairly cheap. It's like $10. Taco Master. Did I even play this? I don't think I did. No, I didn't. I didn't buy it, but yeah. It looks like just a typical restaurant management simulation game, honestly. I mean, how much expectations do you have out of a game called Taco Master? The Take Over the World bundle is just 2 PSP games. Tales from Space, Mutant Blobs Attack. It's a 2D platformer that goes through a range of environments. You're a blob and you have to suck up a lot of stuff in order to get bigger and, you know, survive. And it's a pretty neat little concept. There are Tilda Blob levels, which are really annoying because it's like playing with those wooden silver ball, wooden turntable things. But yeah, it's still a pretty neat little platformer. Definitely not Drinkbox's best, but, you know, when your best is Guacamelee, yeah. Tales of Hearts R is a Tales game. I thought it was perfectly okay, but just okay. The idea is it's a RPG with some anime stuff. It's very anime, actually. And you have a 3D combat system where you have to beat up a lot of enemies, and there's a big story and all that. And the translation's kind of wrong in some places. Like, she wants to call him a pervert, but he calls him a rapscallion. I've never heard the word rapscallion before in my life, so it was a bit of an oddity, but yeah, I never really liked the combat system in this game because I couldn't figure out how to make it so that I could wander around in 3 dimensions. It was always either wander around when not locked onto an enemy or be stuck on a 2D plane when you are locked onto an enemy. It was a little strange, but some people got along with this a lot more than I did, and if you're a fan of Tales, you've probably already gone and bought this already, but yeah. It's not bad, it's not great, it's just okay. Tearaway! One of the best games on the fucking Vita, bar none. It's a papercraft world where everything is made of paper and you can customize a lot about it and you can turn the world into your own. And there's a lot of absolutely adorable stuff, like riding the piggy. I love riding the piggy. The piggy's the best part of the game. And it's such a lovely little experience. It goes for about 4 hours or so. And it's adorable. And they remade it on PS4, and from what I heard, it sold fucking nothing. Then again, it really didn't sell much on Vita either, but, you know, that's just the way things. Tennis in the Face. It's that prequel to the game Baseball Riot. You throw your tennis balls at the enemies. It's nothing too fantastic, but it's alright, and if you want something to play on the go, well, there you go. Terraria is a pretty damn good port of the Terraria PC game. It's got most of the items up to the final patch, but we haven't gotten the final patch yet, the one that adds the absolute final boss. We haven't got that one yet, as far as I'm aware. Hopefully we'll be getting it soon. It does have online multiplayer. The touch controls work. You can customize them a fair bit. There's a lot of stuff to do in Terraria, and it's fucking tiny, so there's no reason not to buy it and keep it around and play it every now and again. It's great. Tesla Grad. It's a 2D platformer with puzzle elements focused on using electricity and magnets in order to work, and all sorts of other gadgets. And it's hand-drawn. It all looks lovely. It's got interesting bosses, and it's a lovely little platformer. It's well worth playing. Tetris Ultimate has a ton of modes, has online play, has lots of stuff. I think it lets you load in your own custom. It lets you load in your own custom music. I think it did. You can play online with other people if you can find them. It's just, you know, a little bit expensive. Like $15 for a Tetris game is a bit much, guys. But it does have a lot of modes and stuff to play as well. So, you know, not that big of a deal. The Bridge is another 2D platformer, but this time you rotate the entire world and you use it to manipulate your way around the environment with all the different kinds of objects and stuff. And it's a neat little concept. You can, like, literally turn the game upside down and fall off the edge of the world. It's kind of neat. But you have to roll objects and you have to try and get enemies out of your way and stuff like that. It's a neat concept. It works pretty well. I thought I got stuck on a puzzle, but no, I just, I emailed the guy about it to make sure the puzzle wasn't actually unsolvable. Turns out it wasn't. I was just an idiot. So, you know, that's a good developer. The Hungry Horde is a weird one. I didn't personally like it. It's an arcadey style game where you have to collect a bunch of zombies by eating humans. And when you get these humans, once you eat these humans, you get brains, you get all sorts of items to use, and you get bonus rounds, and you have to get through the normal levels in a specific amount of time in order to stay alive. It's a really weird sort of game. It's just kind of hard to play because you don't know what the levels are going to be up front. They feel like they're procedurally generated. So you end up having to go through and pick up items and hope for the love of God that you can get to the end in time. It's a little bit annoying, but it's still kind of neat. Maybe if they put it on it actually came out as free on PlayStation Plus, so they probably won't put it up again, but oh well. The Impossible Game is a PSP game, so we'll ignore that. Hey, there's the Muppets Movie Adventures. What the fuck is it doing down here? Okay, The Legend of Heroes, Trials of Cold Steel is a fantastic RPG series from Falcom. Well, it's a fantastic RPG game from Fapcom. Just had to slap myself there for that one. Yeah, Trials of Cold Steel is a fantastic game and a fantastic series. So, you have school kids who are learning to basically save the world, and these games are often in trilogies or duologies or whatever. We're not going to get the trilogy of Trails in the Sky, unfortunately, which is a little bit disappointing. But you've got lots of what's the word I'm looking for? You've got lots of stuff to do. There's lots of quests. All your characters interact in really interesting and funny ways, and it reminds me a lot of Persona. It reminds me a lot of Persona. It isn't like Persona, but it reminds me a lot of Persona with all its character development and in-between stuff. Not to mention the cool-ass RPG aspects and really cool story, which is interconnected with Trials in the Sky and all the other Legend of Heroes games. So yeah, well worth a look, and I'm really looking forward to Trials of Cold Steel 2, but I do need to play through Trials in the Sky 1, Trials in the Sky 2, Trials of Cold Steel. That's a PSP game. We already talked about Muppets Movie Adventures, but it's a really generic 2D platformer which could be swapped with pretty much anything, and it wouldn't make a fucking difference. The Sly Collection. All 3 Sly games. Ported to Vita. They take up 6 gig all up, but the ports are actually really good. That's like the one collection that came out absolutely fine on Vita. So yeah, if you want to play those games, well worth checking out. The Sun and Moon just came out, and the video I made on this game isn't even out on my channel yet at the time of recording this, but it's a 2D puzzle game, platformer game, where you have to face through the floor, and while you're facing through the floor, you go upwards. Gravity works upwards, so you have to use the momentum you build via doing this to complete all the puzzles and collect all the trinkets and complete the puzzle. And you have to do it within a specific amount of time. If you're a fan of the hardcore time attack platforming aspect of Super Meat Boy, you'll probably get a kick out of the Sun and Moon. The Swapper is a game of clones. You are a spaceman and you can swap between, you can make different clones of yourself to do specific things, and there's a lot of different puzzles to be done, and the art style is absolutely fantastic, and the puzzles are actually really clever, and like this puzzle here involves you literally making clones of yourself all the way up the top and then getting to a clone that way. It's kind of great. Yeah, there's a lot of clever ways they take advantage of this mechanic, and it's well worth playing if you're a fan of puzzle platformers. I didn't get on with the Swindle at all. It's a 2D heist game where you have to go through buildings, collect as much money as possible, and make your way out. Unfortunately, they balanced the beginning of the game really badly, so if you fuck up a couple of heists, you might as well start all over again, because you have a limited amount of time to get all the money you need in order to do the last heist and do the goal of the game. And there's a bunch of stuff that can go wrong as well, like the controls suck. It feels like you should really have the first level of all the abilities that you have to buy at the very beginning, because the game just controls so terribly, and sometimes it just decides to fuck you over and stick you in a bottomless pit that you can't get out of in the first few days. So yeah, if they had given you like the very first set of abilities you could get up front and made the game shorter to compensate, it would have been a lot better. But honestly, I just left the Swindle thinking it was a confused, boring, painful mess. Treasures of Montezuma Blitz. It's a free-to-play gem bejeweled game where you have to match 3 and you can match multiple ones for more gems and all that. It's alright. It's got lots of power-up upgrading, but if you're lucky, you'll get caught in one of the bugs and you'll get millions upon millions of gems and you'll be able to buy everything, which is kind of nuts, but it's alright. Thomas Was Alone is a very simple puzzle platformer. Everything's blocks, and you have all these different blocks, all these different characters, and they all have their own unique personalities as told by this narrator that comes in. And the narrator is wonderful and really does give a bit of personality to all these different cubes. And while it's not much as a puzzle platformer, as like an experience about learning about all this silly little AI cube stuff, it's kind of great and it's worth looking at for that. 3/4 Home is basically a visual novel with some interactive elements. You have to hold the R button in order to keep going along the story, and then you just have to pick a couple of choices, and it's just a weird, it's a story, it's like a novel written in a really weird way. It's like a choose your own adventure book, but like really, really obscure about it. I'm not that big of a fan of it, honestly. Tiny Troopers Joint Ops is a port of an iOS twin-stick shooter. Yes, I did say iOS twin-stick shooter. That is about as stupid as it gets. And you have to take out all these different kinds of enemies, and you have to level up all your abilities and stuff like that. But once your troopers die, you have to replace them with new ones, and you have to upgrade them, so there's a bit of permadeath going on there. The problem is, the game is fucking boring. The game is goddamn boring. The weapons aren't any good. It's just dull. It really is. It's just dull. Titan Attacks is a Space Invaders remake from the people who brought you Revenge of the Titans. And, well, it works pretty well. You've got a cannon and you can upgrade it via getting lots of money by killing lots of enemy monsters. And once you've killed all these monsters, you'll go to an upgrade screen. You'll keep doing that for about 50 waves. The game looks great and it plays really well. Every time I play it, I think how good a Space Invaders Extreme successor would be on Vita, and then I get really depressed, so I don't like playing it. Titan Souls is a game heavily inspired by the likes of Dark Souls, where you have to take out all these guys with nothing but a single bow and a single hit point. So if you get touched, you lose. The idea of every boss is finding their individual hit point and getting it. So for example, on this guy here, you have to hit him dead center and that'll kill him. On this guy here, you have to wait for his tail to come up and hit that. So it's a little bit strange having played it, because you end up taking out everything really fast if you're good enough, and you just go through the game and you speed through it if you're more than good enough to do that. But, yeah. It's just a little weird, honestly. Still pretty good. Still fun. Just, yeah. It's weird and kind of difficult, and oh well. Tokyo Twilight Ghost Hunters. It's a strategy game where you maneuver all your case members around a world to try and capture ghosts and fight off ghosts. And it's a really neat little system, because you can send all sorts of people to do all sorts of different things, and it's quite interesting, honestly. but it's kind of hard to explain without you watching the video on it, which I have done. So, but yeah, it's basically like a strategy board game combined with ghost hunting. It's kind of neat. I'm surprised that it's still $39.99. I thought it would have gone down in price by now, but I guess it didn't. Tomba 2 is a PS1 game. Toro's Friend Network is down, so we'll go down to Torkel. Torkel is a physics-based platformer. You have a square, and pressing one of the face buttons will extend what end of that square it goes out. So you can use this to get through multiple physics-based situations. It's alright. It works pretty well. There's no performance drops, and there's multiple endings. So, yeah, if you want to look at that, you might want to go and, go look at my video. I have more puzzles on display, but it's still a pretty neat game nevertheless. Total Recoil is a twin-stick shooter that I believe was also ported from iOS, but this one is actually pretty damn good. It's got more stuff to it. It's got more weapons. It's got a more satisfying upgrade system, and buying the coin multiplier and the gas mask, you do need to buy the gas mask, which is a little annoying. But yeah, buying both of those still keeps the game under $5, and is still a pretty neat, although generic, twin-stick shooter. Touch My Katamari is a Katamari game. You roll around as a big ball and you try and collect everything up in your big ball and make yourself as big as possible. But you can use the touchscreen to make yourself thinner and wider, and it's kind of strange. But yeah, you get more, there are DLC missions and stuff that aren't listed here anymore, oddly enough. But yeah, it's not bad. It's just, it's no Katamari Damacy. Okay, Tukiden. Tukiden The Age of Demons is a hunting game from the people who bought you Dynasty Warriors. You have lots of monsters to go beat, and you have lots of upgrades to go do, because you can harvest like small enemies and big enemy parts, and resources in the world to make more weapons and make money, and use that to make more weapons, which you take on to the bigger monsters. And it's fun, but it's one of those games that really falls to the slowly fall into a pattern of just killing monsters and all that. You just go back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. It's not a bad thing by any means. If you like games like that, go right ahead. I'm just saying that it happens really quickly with this game. Tukiden Kiwami is the upgraded version. That's definitely worth buying more, because it has more of the, it has more missions. It has a bunch of new weapons that I really like, especially the Naginata rifle. And then there's Tukiden 2 that's coming at not the end of the year, but it's coming pretty soon to Japan. And hopefully we'll be getting it by the end of the year. And it's going to be the same game but open world. So, not bad. Towerfall Ascension. A multiplayer game that only does ad hoc multiplayer. Bye. Treasures of Montezuma Marina. Same deal. It's just, it's the same deal as Blitz, except it's just, it's more puzzle questy than, what's the word? It's more puzzle questy than it is, Bejeweled Blitz. So yeah, as you can see, you build up different types of mana, and you can use different attacks and stuff like that. It's alright. Trillion, God of Destruction. This one's neat. It's from Idea Factory, and I believe this is from the same a couple of people who brought Disgaea out. The idea is that you are the leader of the underworld, and you have to train up your daughters in order to beat the big fucking bastard that's going to come and kill us all. And you get several in-game months to do this, and you will have to build up your character stats and use those stats to buy abilities, and then use those abilities to try and defeat Trillion, or at least do as much damage to him as possible, because he literally has 1 trillion HP. So you have to keep going, and your girls, you will get to know all your girls. You'll get to know them, you will do events with them, you'll learn about what they like, you'll end up starting to love the little bastards, and then they die, and you get depressed, and you want to kill Trillion all the much faster. Some people have managed to kill him within 3 bosses on the first go-around, but the game does have a new Game Plus mode, so if you fuck up, you can just start fresh with everything you have. So yeah, it's actually a really, really good game. You start to learn about all the different characters and what they're like, and it's adorable, and it's wonderful, and then they die, and you want to go beat Trillion's ass so bad they can never walk again. So, well worth picking up if you feel like having some feels. TXK, speaking of feels, this is Llamasoft's next magnum opus. This is a remake of the original Tempest games, and it is fucking glorious. It is fucking glorious. There are so many effects on screen. The arcade gameplay is so smooth and so challenging while at the same time being so simplistic. It is the perfect balance of everything a game like this needs to be good. It is one of the best games on the Vita, bar none, and you should have bought it already, you bastards. And with that, I am going to move on now to the next 3 sections in the next video. So, this has been Blue Maxima. I'll see you next time for the last 3 sections, because I'm going to do them all at once.